I live in the downtown area of a pretty major city. My street is relatively quiet, but I can't say so much for the surrounding neighborhoods. My city as a whole is infamous for drug activity and gun violence. We also have an increasing number of homeless people, as our shelters have almost all closed down. I've generally never minded. Shit happens, and I didn't grow up in the best of circumstances either. I would never stereotype anyone based on their housing status, and I was even involved with the homeless outreach program at the time. I left and never went back after this, and I've been hesitant to help anyone since. It's 10 or so at night, and I'm headed to my partner's parents' house about 30 minutes away from my own. I get about 2 blocks away before remembering I needed gas. I'm not too fond of the idea of stopping at a gas station near my apartment at this time of night, but I wasn't going to make it all the way out to the suburbs. I pull into one at a not-so-great part of the neighborhood, but it was brightly lit and there was a lot of people walking by, so I didn't think much of it. I get my gas and go in to grab a couple of snacks. When I come back out, a tall man in a black coat and brown beanie started casually chatting to me. I couldn't tell if he was 25 or 40. His voice is so low that I can barely make out what he was saying. Something about being a music producer and working on a new project. He seems friendly enough, while maybe a little erratic, so I let him ramble for a few minutes before politely telling him I needed to get going. He tells me his name is Mac. I unlock my door and get in, and this fucker gets in the passenger seat with me. At this point, he's no longer a friendly, chatty stranger. I'm fucking terrified. His demeanor hasn't changed though, and he's acting like this is the most normal thing in the world. While I've had more than my fair share of encounters with creeps, nothing like this has ever happened to me. I don't scream, I don't tell him to fuck off, I just sit there in fear of what he'd do to me if I resisted. I need money for my son, he says. He's in the hospital with a gunshot wound. His mom's waiting for me. I know this story is bullshit, but I just want him out of my car. I give him what little I have in my wallet, and tell him I need to get going. He has the nerve to ask, "Can you drive me to my friend's house? It's right up the road." What? Isn't he supposed to be going to the hospital for his son? I try to decline as politely as I can. I tell him my boyfriend is waiting for me, and this opens the floodgates to a bunch of personal questions about my sex life. What my boyfriend and I are going to do when I get there, and extremely gross, unsolicited comments about my body. I've tried to block out his exact words to me, but it was incredibly gross, and I'm sure that this is it. This is the end. I'm trapped in my own car. The gas station parking lot is empty. I can't call the police, and even if I could, it would be a bad idea. I'll elaborate on that later. I wish I could tell you I had some genius idea, then helped me to get myself out of this, but I didn't. I'm panicked and frozen, and I finally agree to take him to where he supposedly wanted to go. He has me drive around this neighborhood, winding through dark side streets with a lot of seemingly abandoned houses for what seems like forever. He finally had me stop in the parking lot of a beauty salon where his friend supposedly works, and is going to get a ride with her to the hospital. The parking lot is on a busy street and brightly lit. If he's going to kill me, he picked a terrible place to do it. He was all over the place and talked rapidly. Little details of his story keep changing constantly, and he's clearly high as a kite, and probably mentally unstable as well. All the while, he continues to act like we were longtime friends, and nothing about this was terrifying. He keeps telling me he would give anything to trade places with my boyfriend. Gross. I keep gently reminding him I need to be leaving, and he keeps telling me to stay because this friend will give me money to pay me back for helping his son out. I wonder why she couldn't have just given him the money directly if that was the case. I ask him what's taking his friend so long. He says he doesn't know. Can he use my phone to call her? I want to say no. Maybe this was all an elaborate ploy to steal my phone and take off. I'm still thinking he could be a murderer though, so I reluctantly hand the phone over. I should have dialed the number for him. He's taking a long time to dial while I'm looking away, and then... Oh, Jesus, fuck. All of a sudden, he's looking up porn. Starts jacking off right in front of me. I wish I had a way to prove this because I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true, and the image is burned into my mind. Should have seen that one coming, I guess. At this point, I lose my cool and tell him to get the fuck out. I'm done. He starts... crying? Wailing? About how I'm just so hot and he hated thinking about me with another man. and I just turned him on so much. I'm just staring at him like, okay, too bad, but you need to go now. He straightens up with a big smile on his face and says, I'm just fucking with you. I'm not a pussy, so I wouldn't cry like that. Are you sure you don't want to take me somewhere else? Yes, I'm fucking sure. I told him my boyfriend was probably worried about me as an hour had gone by at this point. Somehow that got his attention, and he got out and left. I drove to my partner's house shaking. He and I just started dating at this point, and I didn't want him to think I was stupid or something, so I just nonchalantly told him I was dealing with a creep at the gas station, and it took me a little while. Much later, I told him the real story, and he was completely horrified. I wish I could say it stopped there, but I started getting calls from all kinds of local numbers for the next couple of weeks. Only one voicemail was left, and it was a lot of breathing and very faint words I couldn't make out. I'm creeped out, but I try to dismiss it as paranoia. One time, I actually answered. Hey, it's Mac. I have your money. I feel like I need to throw up. I don't need it. Leave me alone. I hang up as he starts rambling about how beautiful I am and how he wants to see me again. I block every strange number that's been calling me and the calls stop. I can't imagine how he got my number. My only thought is that when he opened my phone to call his friend, he looked at my contacts where my own number is displayed at the top. You may wonder why I never called the police. My city is extremely well known for its police using excessive force, especially in the downtown area. People are regularly killed by police here, and I personally witnessed people being beaten up by cops for quite minor infractions. I do not intend to make any kind of political statement or express my opinions here, but I genuinely felt I would have been putting myself in further danger by calling the police, even after all this was over. Best case scenario, nothing would have been done, and I would have been chewed out by the cops for being stupid enough to let this man into my car. Worst case, they shoot him, and I have to live with that forever. I've regretted that since, though, because a friend of mine later had an encounter with him as well on the complete opposite side of the city, and gave her the same story about his son in the hospital. She ended up driving him around aimlessly for an hour before screaming at him to get the fuck out. So, Mac, you're welcome. But let's never fucking meet. Ever again. I recently moved out of my parents' house into a tiny apartment in a tiny rural town about 3 hours away. I had been away for the weekend and was driving home on a Sunday night when I decided to stop for gas at the gas station about a block away from my house. It was dark, but the gas station was fairly lit. On my way to the gas station, I had passed a man riding a recumbent bike, and as I pulled into the pumps, I realized that he had followed me. Now, this didn't raise any alarm bells. The convenience store attached to the gas station is very popular for snacks, and also rents movies out to the small town. As I'm going to pay cash for my gas, I hold the door open for the bicycle man. He makes very intense eye contact, but walks in and goes to browse snacks. I pay the clerk and head back out to my car to begin pumping gas. As I get the nozzle situated, and I'm just standing there waiting for my tank to fill, I feel that crawling sensation you get when someone is watching you. I turned around to survey the parking lot. The bicycle man was standing in the shadows next to the gas station right by his bike, staring me down. Immediately, a cold wave washes over me, and I hurry to finish up my transaction. I was due change in the money I had given the clerk for gas, so I walked back inside, hoping that when I came out he would be gone. However, he too entered the store right after I did, and was now making a big show of looking at the newspapers by the door. I get my change and decide to just loiter in the store in hopes that he'll get bored and leave. For the life of me, I don't know why I didn't tell the clerk I was being followed. But I spend 15 or so minutes just walking up and down the aisles looking at bags of chips and random snacks. Finally, I think it's safe to leave. I didn't see him anywhere. I head out the door and make it a few steps to the parking lot before I hear the door open up behind me. As I glance back, I recognize Bicycle Man, and I rush to my car. As I'm hurrying to get in, turn it on, buckle up, and put my change away, I can see him standing in the alleyway next to the store rushing to get on his bike. I finally just threw everything on the passenger seat and just peeled out of the gas station as fast as possible. Now, I should mention that I only moved here about a month before, and didn't know the area very well aside from getting to my apartment. And I have a bright red car with out-of-state license plates that sticks out like a sore thumb in this tiny town. I realized that he absolutely saw what direction I was headed in, and he can easily just drive around and see my car parked outside my apartment. So, in my panic, I ended up parking in the lot across the street from my place and waiting for my heart to stop racing. I was parked there for maybe about 2 minutes before I realized that he could see me there just as easily. He approached the parked car and knocked. I was so spooked I ended up driving around for about 15 to 20 minutes before finding the police station and waiting for them to come out and talk to me in the parking lot. Bicycle Man was never confronted by the police, but I sometimes see him riding up and down Main Street. So, as a background, my family lived a state away from me, and at the time that this happened, I had just turned 18, and my mom would finally let me drive to go see them, which was about a 5.5 hour drive. No biggie. I was like, bet I can smoke some weed and drive that easily. And I did just that. About halfway there, I needed to stop and get gas and get snacks. As you can guess, I had the munchies. I wasn't very familiar with the drive or where the gas stations were on it, and they were kind of spread out. So as soon as I felt it wasn't smart to wait until another gas station came up, I pulled off the highway. I've always been sort of suspicious of people in general because I have not had an easy childhood, and I grew up learning to just kind of feel when things are not right. So I wasn't really worried about being by myself because I knew how to handle myself. So I pull up to this relatively empty gas station, maybe 1 or 2 other cars, but it was a larger one with one of the antique shops in it. I park at a pump, lock my doors, and go inside. There was no one at the counter yet, and a sign was on the counter saying that they would be right back. So I go and pick out a snack and a drink. Well, when I previously walked in, I noticed a man, in his late 20s, kind of just wandering in the store. I saw him glance over at me when I walked in, but I didn't really think about it. Not really paying him any attention, I went and opened the door to the soda, and was pursuing them, when he comes right up next to me and opens the one next to mine. This wasn't particularly weird to me, but the fact that he was literally all the way across the store when I came in, and then as soon as I go over there, he does too? I was like, okay, I'm gonna go look for a different drink. So I go to the tea section, and stand there for a sec. And he follows me to the one right next to mine again. Only this time, he looks at me, smiles a creepy-ass closed-lip smile, and says, "Hi." I do want to say that even though he could have easily just been trying to be nice or flirt or something, I had an instant creepy vibe from him when he first walked over, and that intuition has never failed me before. At this point, I just look at him, nod my head, grab something, and go to the counter, thinking to myself that I can just grab a snack later. He comes up right behind me with one of those jerky sticks. Literally did not even grab anything from the refrigerators that he was looking in right next to mine, and just stands there super close to me. And I mean, he was right up behind me. I could feel his body heat and his breath on the back of my neck. I'm literally just wanting this fucking cashier to come in here so I can get the fuck away from him. So I start calling for someone. No one answers or comes out. Dude's behind me texting on his phone and looking around at the door like he was waiting for someone. Finally, I'm like, fuck it, I'm out. I leave my drink on the counter and walk out. He follows me. At this point, I literally run to my car, and I remember feeling him grasp my jacket, but with the momentum of my arms swinging, he didn't get a firm hold. I hop in and lock the doors, turning my car on in record speed. We make eye contact, and out of the corner of my eye, I see 2 men run from around the corner of the gas station. All 3 of them run at my car, which is not very far from where the first guy is, and I just floor it out of there, almost wrecking my car on the corner. I don't know what they were planning on doing, but I imagine I was about to get kidnapped. I called the police because I don't know where the cashier was, and I just had a bad feeling they did something to them. The guys were gone when the police got there. I now carry my knife on me when I go on that drive. I remembered something that happened to my best friend and I a few years ago, and figured I might share it here. While my best friend at the time and I were seniors in high school, we went on a weekend trip to visit my grandmother a couple hours away from my town in Georgia, USA. The town we lived in was comparatively small for the state, but one of the biggest towns within a few hours. But we had to travel about 2.5 hours through tiny, somewhat redneck towns to get to my grandmother's place. We were on our way back home when we had to stop at a gas station literally in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking cornfields, cotton fields, streets with no signs or lights, not even stop signs, and definitely no call service. The convenience store attached to the gas station had maybe a couple of snacks inside, but it looked deserted from the outside. No other cars or people in sight, and we didn't bother to get anything other than gas. I paid with card mainly because I didn't want to leave my 5'1", 100-pound friend alone in the car while I went alone inside. Another car pulled up on the other side of the single gas pump while I just started pumping gas. Because of everything I'd read on this subreddit, I already had a weird feeling and decided to stay alert and stand outside of the car with my driver's side door open so my friend could see and hear everything going on. A thin, late 50-ish older man got out of the car and seemed to be paying at the pump and standing beside his car while he got gas. But after a few seconds, he walked around the pump and maneuvered himself around my car door to stand within a foot of me and asked if he could pump my gas for me. Luckily, the gas nozzle was locked, so it was just pumping without me having to hold it, and I immediately placed myself between the opening of the door and the man, and prepared to either shut the door with me inside it, or move and slam it behind me to protect my friend if necessary. I calmly told him it was fine, no thank you. He looked me up and down with the corner of his lip tilted up, and said, "Pretty girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone, and you definitely shouldn't have to do this by yourself. Let a man help you, baby," and covered my hand with his own, and reached for the gas pump I was holding. I jerked my hand out from underneath his and slammed my car door shut, thinking the last thing I would want him is jumping in my car and driving away with my friend in the passenger seat. Orange flag started tinting red, and my usual overly polite demeanor turned serious, as I remembered something I read here that said it was better to be safe and seem mean rather than be polite and uncomfortable. So I responded and said, "Sir, get away from me. I can pump my own gas and I've already said no thank you. Leave us alone." He didn't move, only raised his chin and managed to make eye contact with me, all lip tilt gone. I stared him down and figured I've gotten enough gas to last enough time to get the hell out of wherever we are. So I maintained eye contact, pulled the nozzle out, and basically threw it back onto the pump before getting in my car and drove away before he even moved. As we drove away, I glanced in the rear view and saw that his car wasn't even being filled up with gas. Telling me he was driving by and decided to help a damsel in distress out? My friend was shaking the whole way home, telling me we should have just let the man pump her gas. But I'm just glad some of the confidence I've gained from this sub helped me stay attentive and respond confidently enough to get out of the situation. So, creepy helpful gas station man in the middle of Ghost Town, Georgia. Let's not meet. Hey guys, the Dark Narrator here, and thank you guys so much for watching. I know it's been a while since we've done a true creepy story video, and I've been wanting to do one for a while. I just had a couple of projects I wanted to get out of the way first. I have another series coming out right after the one that we're doing now, the Night Guard one, ends. It's going to be by the same author, and I'm not going to tell you what it is yet until it comes up, but I think you guys are going to love it, and I'm just going to keep these series rolling on every Sunday, and every Thursday it'll be something, like this, or, another creepypasta-based thing, or a no-sleep. Anyway, one thing I do want to tell you guys about is Reddex. Reddex is a app created by another fellow narrator by the name of Stories After Midnight. Reddex is a tool for narrators to be able to sift through Reddit stories better. There's a lot of filters that you can go through, like adding a certain amount of upvotes to the filter so that you can only get those upvotes on each story. So if you wanted to set it to 150 upvotes, that only those stories with 150 and up will show. Not only that, it tells you how long it will take to read the actual story, so you can plan out how long your video is going to actually be. In the actual dashboard, this is probably the coolest part, you have a reading list where you can actually take all the links to all the stories that you are going to do probably for one video or the next 5 videos and put the links to them in your reading list. And you can actually mark as read, let you know what stories you've already read or what you have to read already. I just actually planned this entire video out through Reddex because of this reading list. You also have an inbox, which is going to connect you to your submit a story thing, which you can build your own stagnant website with all of these colors and stuff. I have my own. You can check it down in the description. It's there so you can submit a story and it'll show up in your inbox. I think this is a really must-have tool for any narrator, and it makes my job and your job so much easier, so please go check it out. Anybody can just make an account, and if you are a narrator, I really suggest using this because this is making my life so much easier for making videos for you guys. So please go check out Reddex in the link below, and I will see you guys next time for another video.
See you later.